Welcome to this session, bringing sustainable living into the workplace. So I know it's just 4 o'clock, so we're gonna get started, and we'll cover a couple of housekeeping things, do some intros, just in case any folks join us a couple minutes in. But we'll go ahead and get started for the folks who are here with us now. So thank you for joining, and we'll go ahead and get started. So this session is about covering strategies that you can use to bring your personal passion for the planet into the workplace. So how to think about starting a sustainability program, growing the one you have, or making it more strategic, and a few best practices about how to develop these programs at different stages. We'll hop over to some quick introductions. I'm Annalee. I'm the CEO of Sustain.Life, and I came to sustainability as a non-expert but a passionate believer. And so when we say that this platform is built for non-experts, you know it's true because I am one. So hopefully, if it can help me, it can help you. And I'd like to introduce Constanze Duke on our sustainability team.
Thank you, Annalee. It's really nice to be here with everyone. At Sustain.Life, I work on developing sustainability guidance and tools. And over the last 15 years, I've done exactly what we're here to talk about today, which is bringing our enthusiasm for sustainability into workplaces. And I know for many of us, sustainability is just this moral imperative. It's something that we've adopted in our homes. But in our workplaces, we usually need to persuade really diverse teams of the tangible business benefits of sustainability. And there's also the challenge of implementing the changes that we've thought of. So that's what we're trying to make a lot easier with our tool.
Thanks, Constanze. So we'll start with what brings you here today. So you're probably here because you care about sustainability in your personal life. And some of these steps may look familiar to you. I would guess that the majority of you have taken at least one or maybe all of these, thinking about sustainability in your own life. So if we turn to business, applying that same mindset to the workplace that you're already using in your personal life can unlock massive opportunity, not only for the planet, but also for your business. So we're looking at things like financial performance, employee retention and recruiting, and customer acquisition and loyalty. And there's really strong studies showing that, across all these different important stakeholder groups, they really care about sustainability and reward businesses who focus on it. So if the benefits are so great, why aren't more businesses implementing sustainability strategies? And I think, there we go. We're going to pop up a quick poll, and I'll take a minute to let you read that and respond. Oh, okay. We've got some results here. It looks like, yeah, a lot of folks saying people don't have time to focus on it, or it's not a top priority. Maybe you're lacking knowledge about what to do. In some cases, budget. I think this is pretty much what we see across the board. These reasons are really common, and I think generally speaking, organizations are worried this is complex and expensive, and it can be really cost prohibitive. Particularly, we have limited people who have these expert skill sets that we need, and these roles can be really hard to hire for, even if you have budget and executive buy-in to hire dedicated resources. And there's a quote I want to share from a sustainability manager at Google from a case study that they did with MIT. And it's such a great quote. They said, people always think, oh, you must have these really sophisticated systems, like great databases and things that just automatically track this data. No, we're using spreadsheets done manually, like at pretty much every other company. And so if a company as large and robust and well-resourced as Google is facing that same kind of situation when it comes to sustainability, really you're not missing some magic bullet, or you shouldn't feel overwhelmed by this topic. And I can't overstate how important you are as a driver of change within your organization. And really, your business and are the best positioned from within to advocate for starting to make some of these changes. And one of the things we'll talk about through this session is how important it is to make small changes, and that these can be really iterative programs. And I think that's another really important thing to keep in mind if you start to feel maybe overwhelmed or unsure where to start. So this brings us to Sustain.Life. and where we come in. We're a software platform to support you in making changes around sustainability and to help make it simple to bring sustainability into the workplace. We created the platform to help people without any experience leverage their interest and unique positioning within their companies to advocate for change. And a call out for the sustainability professionals out there. If you do have a background in sustainability, we think this platform can help you be more efficient and make sure you're not reinventing the wheel. So there is something here for you as well. But the key things, for our platform, and we think for successful sustainability programs in general, are thinking about making something that's really accessible. So our platform is built on actionable guidance developed by sustainability practitioners who have implemented these programs in real companies and can give you tips and best practices to achieve great outcomes quickly. We are also thinking about accessibility from a cost-effective standpoint. We're designed to be less expensive than consultants and other software solutions, because at the end of the day, sustainability should make your company more efficient, and that can mean saving energy and reducing waste, but it also should mean saving you money. And we really do believe that sustainability can be good for the planet and for your bottom line, and that to make these programs really have longevity, you need to be thinking about both. In terms of a comprehensive solution, we offer solutions around carbon, thinking about footprinting and offsetting, but also other areas like waste, water, work from home strategies, how to adapt to physical climate risk, really enabling you to think holistically about your organization's impact, both in terms of your impact on the planet, but also just thinking about risk mitigation and understanding your business in a broad sense. And as I mentioned, given my own background, we are focused on solutions for every team and role and designed for non-experts to drive change. So you don't need to be an expert to be successful here. And then lastly, thinking about collaborative tooling. So how you can engage internal and external stakeholders around actions that you want to take, and then sharing your progress with that diverse set of audiences and how you can do that well. So that's a quick sort of introduction to the problem, a little bit about us and kind of where Sustain.Life fits into this. And from there, we'll take you into the tool and show you a quick demo, and also walk you through the steps of creating and managing a sustainability program. So this is the start of our onboarding, where we benchmark your company and help identify your biggest areas of opportunity. Our goal is really to put something together where within 60 seconds, you can get a sense of what you would want to tackle, and start putting together a roadmap or a strategy within your first session. So you can take something back to your business where you can clearly articulate what it is that you're hoping to achieve and what you want to all work together on. So I'm just going to answer these relatively quickly using some of the kind of common responses that we see from organizations, but we have recommendations that fit all of these types of business. So you'll just see one example in this process, and over here you see some of these different areas lighting up. These are those different focus areas I mentioned earlier. And so now, just from that relatively quick set of questions, we can map out recommendations about where you might want to focus. And so this is a prioritization matrix, and it's a place where you can compare dissimilar items and start to build a roadmap. And our whole platform is built around what we call actions. So you're building out a roadmap of actions, and those actions can really cover things across your business, from really strategic things to really tactical things, and to help businesses compare the pros and cons and costs and impact of all those different topics. We thought it would be helpful to put it into this kind of matrix, where here in the vertical axis, you're looking at climate benefit. So these are things that are going to reduce carbon, reduce waste, increase biodiversity, things that generally speaking are good for the planet. And then over here on the bottom axis, we're looking at business benefits. So things that can increase your revenue, reduce your costs, maybe help you avoid fines, generally things that are good for your margins, good for the business in general. And we call this our maximum impact quadrant up here at the top right. So these are things that are great for the planet, great for the business, and they can be really big, as you might imagine. So some of these are things that are going to take months, if not years, to do really, really well. And so when you think about starting to put together a strategy for your business, we recommend starting with a couple of the things in this quadrant so that you have some big North Star kind of goals that you can really rally around and think about for the long term. But then we also recommend bringing in a number of actions from this momentum building quadrant where things are a little bit smaller, maybe more bite size, but they're a great way to get more results quickly, but also to engage more of the people within your company and to kind of build that sense of momentum, which is why we call it our momentum building quadrant. And so from this view, this is where you start to kind of think through your strategy, think about where you want to focus your time, your money, your energy, and start putting together a strategy that makes sense for your business. And we'll hop into one of these and kind of show you just an example. I'll start here with reducing the impact of single-use coffee pods. Constance, if you want to share more about this one.
Thank you, Annalee. Here we go. Yeah, I'm really excited about this action content because as someone who's worked in sustainability for a long time, I'd always wished I had someone who could give me the ins and outs. So I love that we offer this content. And it basically teaches you how to go about implementing small and large sustainability projects. We only have time to dive into a couple of these today, but there are about 100 of them in our tool now, and we're adding more every week. So this coffee pot action is a really simple one. It just basically goes into reducing the impact of those pods in the Keurig and similar coffee machines. And it's something that you may be familiar with from your home and also your workplace. So to ease you into the project, we provide this really concise overview. All of our research comes from reputable sources, and you can use the stats and the insights that we provide here to help persuade other people in your organization to, pop them into a presentation. One interesting thing about this particular action is that coffee makers using those pods are not actually the worst option as far as making coffee goes, the second best, in fact. And although the visible pod waste could easily lead you to think to that conclusion that they're actually a really poor choice from an environmental perspective. But because the bulk of the impact of a cup of coffee actually is upstream in the coffee bean supply chain, and the pods use fewer coffee grounds than other methods like drip coffee, it turns out that in a life cycle approach, they're not actually as harmful as you might think. So once we've armed you with these basic facts, we take you into what we call guidance and tasks and start by making you think through the problem at your organization. And that's something we call pre-work. You may generate just a couple of pods at home, but in workplaces, you can imagine you might be generating dozens or even hundreds a day, and that waste is in fact very visible. So when your company talks about, their commitment to sustainability, this can create a little bit of a conflicting message, and employees might wonder why there's so much waste being generated in a company that's really concerned about sustainability. So we help you kind of think through that, consider the pitfalls and the benefits, and we ask you to consider what is feasible in your specific organization. So in this case, for instance, could you introduce a composting program for the coffee grounds? Or could you do something with the coffee pods other than tossing them in the trash, like maybe introducing refillable pods or using the vendor's mail-in program for the used pods? And then when you're done with this pre-work, you can start checking off tasks. You can also add notes about your progress, maybe something that you want to remember where you picked off, maybe something that a colleague has told you and you just want to document it. So it's a really cool tool for keeping track of your project. We also provide a list of interested parties or stakeholders. They can be internal or external, and those are the people that you might want to involve in the process. We also give you some guidance on what you might want to discuss with them. I think things are always a little bit more complicated at work than they are in our homes. So generally, it's just better to involve too many people than to leave people out and potentially miss relevant information as you plan your project. Just one quick example I can think of from one of the companies I work for. It was a very large company. And for Earth Day, we launched this project to get rid of the disposable disposable cups in our kitchens and replace them all with reusable mugs. And so as I was planning this project, I just came across all these concerns that I didn't even consider. Like, people were worried that everybody was going to line up at the sink at lunch to wash all these mugs that we would now be using, or that your neighbor would leave a dirty mug on their desk. Of course, that does happen. Or even drinking out of a mug that someone had previously drank out of, even after dishwashing them. So there were all kinds of concerns that we had to take into consideration that you would not think of normally, because it's something that's just normal in your home to do. So once you've had all your stakeholder discussions, you're ready to move to implementation. And this is where you would actually execute. So this is where you source your maybe refillable pods, where you order the mail-in supplies for your used pods, and where you plan alternative offerings. So, maybe you want to place a jar of instant coffee, which is maybe not the best, but it is the lowest impact coffee choice. And this is also the point in the project where you prepare resources to educate your teams and communications to launch your initiative. You'll see this kind of light teal box here. So interspersed in our guidance, you'll find these pro tips or watch outs. These are things that you may not have thought of, but that someone who's implemented an action like this in the real world has found to be really helpful. And then we conclude each section with guidance for what to measure, both quantitatively and also qualitatively. In this example, which is fairly simple, you would obviously want to track the waste reduction from diverting or eliminating the pod waste, but you could also measure indicators like social media reactions when you post about the initiative on your social channels. And then a little bit ago, I mentioned employee resources or education. And I just want to come back to that for a moment. When you answered the poll, I think 44% of you said that you just don't have the time for implementing sustainability programs. And I think part of the reason is that on sustainability teams, we spend so much time creating content and material to share in the workplace. So to make that aspect a little bit easier for you, many of our actions provide content in these download tabs. For this action, we just have this lovely poster that you could download and display near the coffee station. But in other actions, we offer really comprehensive material. So there are presentation templates that you can edit to make the case to your executives. All kinds of other editable templates. There are worksheets and project planners and all the things that would take you hours to generate from scratch, and they're kind of ready to go in the app. And then we also have this assessments and certifications mapping tool. This is where we show you how your project aligns with or contributes to really well-known frameworks. You can expand each accordion to see the full text of the criterion. And so if it's important to your organization to tackle actions that match certain frameworks, or if you're pursuing certification like zero waste, for example, this will definitely be helpful for you in measuring your progress. And then just one more thing I want to talk about on this page is the impact score. Annalee already talked a little bit about this, but it gives you a broad idea of how much of an impact your project will have on these different categories, including the climate, your business, how much it will cost and how much time it will take. And so this is a great tool to compare the impact of actions to each other. This is obviously a small action, so you'll see that the impact scores are all quite low. And, obviously you'll want to focus on the big actions that have a significant impact, but these small actions can help bring attention to bigger issues. And especially if you're just starting out on your journey, they're a really good way to get people engaged, to create visibility and kind of start building this culture around sustainability in the workplace, but also to demonstrate on a really small scale that business objectives and environmental impact reduction are not actually conflicting goals. And I'll hand it back to you, Annalee.
Thanks, Constance. I know I was shocked when I realized that Keurig pods were not so bad. I feel like I lost a few bets on that one. So from here, we'll take you over to look at our Discover page. So this is somewhere where you can just explore all these different focus areas. And oh, great, we've got another poll. So we're interested in which areas are most important to your organization. I'll take just a minute to let you respond to that. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So I think you should be seeing the poll results. It looks like energy and emissions is by far the biggest focus area. We hear that a lot. I think it's a place that many people are focusing right now. A little bit later on, we'll show you some of our work on carbon calculators and offsets, as well as just how you can measure and reduce energy use in general. But that's great to see. And then kind of spread out across the others, a little bit on physical climate risk. That's a really interesting and very topical one also. So here you can explore all these different areas and kind of find action plans that fit these specific topics. We've also got a few sort of thematic things, like if you're just beginning, if you're making the case for sustainability, ways to get lots of people involved, that kind of thing. But from here, I'll take you over to business strategy. This is one that's pretty high level. We end up recommending it a lot of times to companies where the main driver for sustainability programs is it's coming from their leadership, or maybe it's coming from their customers. So this is a place where you can think about these really big things like policies, sustainability mission statement or vision. It's a time to kind of sit down and think about really what your business wants to do kind of at a strategic level. And there's a lot of great topics to go through here. But I'll hop over to implementing a supplier code of conduct for a look at an action that is, just from the scores a bit meatier, and let Constance walk us through this one too.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Annalee. So yeah, as Annalee mentioned, this action is definitely more substantial than our coffee pot action, and you can tell this right away by the impact on the business and the time to implement in this impact scoring graph. And yeah, this is a strategic action, and as you've just seen, there are lots of these in our tool. They're really important to laying the groundwork for a cohesive sustainability program, and they include everything from creating sustainability mission statements and forming a green team, to creating accountability for sustainability targets, launching a formal stakeholder engagement program, creating a materiality matrix, and all the way up to writing a credible sustainability report. So on the purchasing front, with the supplier code of conduct, this is a really huge opportunity for companies to have an impact. And if you think about your own purchasing behavior, the way you evaluate brands, which ones you're loyal to, which ones you might be boycotting, maybe you will not buy from a company that suppresses minorities or pollutes the environment or manipulates the market or doesn't pay a living wage. So this is something you can take into the workplace and help create this code of conduct that outlines your expectations of suppliers. A lot of times, I think smaller companies are reluctant to impose demands on their suppliers because they don't feel that they have a lot of purchasing power. As a consumer, you may actually feel more empowered than your company feels about influencing suppliers when it's a smaller company. But that said, we're really at this point where companies need to step up and create those new norms by at least communicating their expectations. And if your company is not big enough today to enforce certain standards, it might be big enough next year. And also, if a supplier does push back on your code of conduct and they say, we really can't comply with this, at least you'll be aware. And in the future, you can prepare for finding suppliers who either better align with your values or really come up with a strategy to work with these suppliers to up their sustainability game. When you look at the layout of this action, it should already look familiar. It's the same as our coffee pot action. So hopefully this format is becoming familiar. And when we go over to guidance and tasks, you can also see that this action links to a more advanced action for building out a really comprehensive supplier responsibility program. So it's kind of, a lot of our actions link you to related actions, to more complex actions, so you can kind of learn and build your program as you go. And then the other link that we have in here is to this really comprehensive template. I mentioned this earlier, that we provide a lot of these resources. So you can just download this. And this is a code of conduct that already reflects best practices across industries. And I think, Annalee, are you sharing? Cool.
I'll take us over there.
Perfect. There it is. So you can edit this document, you can put your logo on it, you can add sections that are specific to your company, you can remove parts that don't apply. So really something that would take hours and hours to research and put together is something that you can do here in probably less than an hour. It is quite lengthy. So again, if you're a small company, you can always remove things, but it is also very comprehensive for anyone who wants to set those types of expectations of their suppliers. One thing that we have in this action that we didn't see in the coffee pot action is the policy builder tab. So this is another area where I think we spend a lot of time as sustainability professionals, and Sustain.Life is really doing most of the work for you here as well. So as an individual, you probably have a ton of ideas about what your company could do better, but it's not always easy to translate this into corporate language. And having policy text kind of ready to go as a starting point will make this much easier for you, because again, you can remove what you know not to be applicable at your organization, or what's not practical right now. And one thing you'll see here is that we preface some of these accordions with policy and we preface others with strategy. So the strategies are really meant to enhance your policies, and you can put them in the same document. You know, if you look at it from the perspective of yourself as an employee, you don't really just want to read what your company requires, but you also want to know how to make that happen so that you feel empowered. So we provide those strategies, and again, they are completely editable. You can click to add to the handbook, you can make your edits. And then when we move over, I'll give you a chance to edit, Annalee, perfect. And then when we move over into the left-hand navigation, you'll see the policy handbook there. So whenever you've added a policy to your handbook, you see this open book icon. You can also build policies directly from here. An easy way to do this is to click on an area of interest. So let's say energy and emissions, which was big in our poll. And if we expand the climate action policy, you'll find this really concise policy language. And then if you want to outline how you'll accomplish this, you can add the strategies. So let's say sustainability data, if you're just starting out with climate action. And here you can see that you have this bulleted list. It goes from the most basic thing you can do, which is measuring, to much more advanced actions like annually reporting your progress against targets. So if you think your company is only ready for the first one, only include that one in your policy for now, and then come back and add more of these as your program matures. So this is very much the same approach that you might take at home, obviously not the policy writing part, but starting out with something that's really simple and practical, and then getting more ambitious over time. And one more thing here, you can also see that we recommend actions alongside each policy. So you can add them to your action roadmap, or even just learn more about what it takes to bring a policy like that to life. And with that, back to you, Annalee.
Thanks, Constance. So we have just a couple more things we'll show you, and things that are important to think about for your business as you're starting a program. So the next one we'll look at are impact calculators. So these are measuring your carbon emissions across different areas of your business's operations. We started with a couple of these that were sort of more approachable. We're looking at launching scope 1, 2, and a number of additional scope 3 calculators in the next weeks and months. So we're very excited to have more of that coming. But I'll walk you through one of these just so that you can get a sense of what they look like. And I'll just set this one up. And one thing that we try to help people keep in mind with this is to really not let sort of perfection get in the way of progress. And I think sometimes, especially as we start talking about measurement, we sometimes think like, oh, wow, I need to go away and like, do this really deep dive and understand all my data and where it is. And I think that's a really fantastic thing to do. But if you are just starting out with this, we would really recommend that you take a swag at some of these things. Go ahead and feel free to use percentages, make best guesses, and try to get a really high level sense of sort of directionally where your business is. And you can always come back and edit these, change them, add more data, get more specific. You can always do that, but don't let yourself kind of get caught up in like in collecting reams and reams of data before you just start getting your first sense of kind of where your business falls here. So here with this one on commuting, I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. I'll just put in kind of like an average company and assume that, so at this point we're saying, do you track commuter miles specifically for each of these things? And if you do, that's really fantastic. And we can accept all of that really specific data. But if you don't, it's totally fine to just put in percentages. And depending on where you are, that might vary. I am based in New York, so I'm going to guess that a pretty small percentage of people are traveling by car. That number is not typical across the country, but it is typical in New York. And I'm going to guess that probably a ton of people are coming in by rail. And then some of these questions are just about some of the things that you can do next as a business. Some of these might look familiar, I would guess at this point. Many companies have flexible work options around working from home, but some of these other ones may be less common. And so when you finish that calculator, you can get a really quick sense of your carbon emissions from that time period. So in this case, we're looking at about 1.5 tons per month for this sort of fictional company. And here we try to give you a few different equivalencies to understand what that really means, because I think, 1.5 tons may not mean that much to you or to your fellow employees, but it might be more if you can envision 67 bags of waste recycled instead of landfilled, or 26 trees growing for 10 years, or tanks of propane. I guess we're a bit past the summer, but that one might feel more familiar. And then some of these things on emissions distribution, you'll see that even though car commuting was a really small part of our total percentage of commuting, it still ends up being kind of a disproportionate percentage of your total emissions. And that just reflects the emissions intensity of these different modes of travel. So it can be kind of interesting to see even having, a relatively small group of car commuters can still lead to pretty high emissions in this area. And as Constance was saying, for the policies, for each of these calculators, we also include a number of recommended actions that you can use to reduce your emissions in this area. And so, for example, I'll show you our bike to work program action quickly. I like this one because it has a simulator where you can see how much you could reduce your emissions by introducing a program like this. So I think we said we had 25 employees and like half of them were on site. So I'll say maybe like 12 employees work on site. And in New York, people like to bike. So I'll say maybe there's 40% of them, maybe that's aggressive, but I'll assume lots of them want to bike. And that tells me that I could save almost a ton per year in terms of just getting more people to bike. Which is great, and lets you start connecting, this monthly tonnage number. If you have goals around reducing those kinds of emissions, you can start to connect that to the actual programs that you plan to put in place, and then over time start to see those numbers come down, which is great. And I'll quickly show you a little bit on offsets. We have an offset feature where you can just purchase any amount of offsets that you want for whatever reason. But we do kind of recommend that you start from the calculator so that when you're purchasing offsets, you know that they're tied to a specific set of business activities. And you can offset however much you want, whatever you're ready for. I'll just say 100%. And then we have offsets in a number of different countries and across a number of different types. There's so many different things to think about around choosing an offset program that's right for your business or right for this category of emissions. We have a whole action that's walking through how to do that. And particularly if you're thinking about, customer facing language around how you're offsetting. I think it's really important to make sure that you're picking a project that feels authentic to you and that fits kind of what you're working on. So there's a lot to explore here if you're interested in that. Obviously you can just offset separate from calculators too, if that's what you're interested in. And then lastly, I'll come over to reports. We've got a roadmap status report that kind of recaps where you are in terms of your action roadmap and how much you have left to go. Oh, great. We have another poll. I think this is our last one, just about key stakeholders. And so as you think about reporting, this question is really important, obviously, because your stakeholder is key to what you're communicating. So when you're starting to think about reporting, you really want to know who this is going to. So I'll give you a moment just to answer that and see kind of where we're thinking most about, oh, okay, pretty evenly split across investors, customers, employees, and leadership. Yeah. And that makes sense. And customers obviously are a really, really key one. It looks like sort of the small majority are there, but all of these groups are really important. And it's important that with each one, you're thinking about how you're framing this language so that you really give them the information that they need. I'll show you one quick report. This is a product sustainability scorecard. When we were going through that onboarding, we said we were working on a physical product. And so I'm going to show you just a quick example. This is related to one of our actions, which is about developing a product sustainability score for your business. And so here we're looking at both your environmental score and your social score and looking at your sustainability by category, just to give you a sense of where you're strongest and where you have the most opportunity. Again, looking through strengths and opportunities and then next steps to kind of improve. And this prioritization matrix will look super familiar from the one that we looked at before, but each of these dots represents an action in our platform and something that you can work on to kind of improve your metrics here. So this is just one example of the kind of reports that we have. That we also have some on just status and progress tracking also. So with that, we've walked through a good bit of content and also a few, hopefully, best practices around what you would want to be doing as a business as you think about sustainability. And I'm going to take us right back to our deck and say thank you, and also check to see quickly. I think we've left some time for questions if there are any. I'm just going to check to see. Oh, great. It looks like maybe, Constance, there's one that you wanted to answer live if you want to hop in.
Sure. Yeah, there was a question about whether the platform is applicable to someone who maybe has a service offering or a digital product. And yes, absolutely. This was actually one of the onboarding questions. I know we glossed over this quickly, but if you go into the tool to try it out, you'll definitely have the option of selecting that you're either a service provider or that you offer a digital product. And then, of course, the focus area we recommend based on this will be definitely more strategic, obviously around business travel and things like that. So very much applicable to any industry.
Perfect. And it looks like maybe we have one more question just about, do I need a lot of time to set this up and implement change? We hope not. We've definitely oriented this around trying to give you actionable recommendations quickly and save you time as much as we possibly can throughout the tool. So we would say go ahead and get started. And we mostly recommend trying to get to that kind of first roadmap in your first session so that you have kind of a clear takeaway on what you would want to share with your business. And then over the next couple of weeks, focusing on feedback and then starting some of those like early sort of momentum building activities that can get more and more of your business engaged as you sort of finalize your longer term strategy and start working on meatier topics. how much does this cost? We have two plans. One's $100 a month, one's $300 a month. They vary in terms of how much content you have access to and the number of people who have access to the platform. And they both have annual discounts. And we'll send around more information about this after, so you have it if you're interested. And then is there anything else? I feel like there's a, yeah, okay, cool. I think maybe we got through all the questions, but after this session, we'll plan to send around this deck as well as the recording from this session and a little bit more information about our business, just in case we can be helpful to you. But really, mostly, thank you for coming today, and thank you for attending Climate Week in general. There are so many ways that businesses can get involved, and there are more coming all the time. And as you know from your personal life and the steps you've taken there, this is an iterative approach, and small changes really add up. And even if you're starting with, reducing your paper towel use this week, you move on to other topics over time. And it's so important, the work that you're doing within your business. You're such an important advocate there. And genuinely, you are better positioned than any expert to know kind of what steps your business can take and what makes sense to do next. So please reach out to us if you want to discuss strategies around that, or just want to talk through kind of what your business could be thinking about doing next. We're here to serve you and to help accelerate your work. So we're really interested in what you need, and we would love to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you for being here today, and for all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.